Hey guys, how you doing? Uncle Bob here once again with another video. Today we're going to be doing the movie DVD review of Marvel's Kraven the Hunter, which is obviously a well-known villain and well, say villain, but sort of in the Spider-Man comics and cartoon, he sort of plays villain and then sort of like hero, sort of anti-villain, I guess you could say. So sort of like, yeah, villainish, but sort of anti-venom, anti-hero. And in this, he is an anti-hero. I don't think he plays villain at all in this. I think he's basically an anti-hero in this, pretty much all the way through. And obviously, yeah, it comes from the. I don't know because doesn't actually say Marvel. Well, it does actually say Marvel. I didn't know it said Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I guess it is sort of like I guess it's a spin-off. I wasn't too sure if they was going to make Kraven the Hunter because they made Venom, but I wasn't sure about Kraven because it wasn't really ever that massive, was it? Like, I know Venom was quite popular, and you sort of got like Punisher and Blade, different characters from Spider-Man, but didn't know whether Kraven would ever sort of get his own movie or whether it would be strong enough to sort of hold up. But yeah, it did eventually. Yeah, and this is now it was released. I think it was released this year. I think it was released like December, was it? No, I think it was like, yeah, I think it was like December of last year it came out. I think there was a few delays on this. I think it was supposed to be due out a little while ago, before that previously, and then it was like delayed for ages, and then it was obviously finally released in December. I think it was around that time anyway. And then, yeah, I'm not sure if it done that well. I think it was sort of like mixed reviews. I think some people liked it, but some people said it was alright but not great. I think some people said they liked the action, not the story. So sort of, I think people a lot of, you know, saying it was alright and some people saying it wasn't. But I mean, I didn't get around to seeing it at the cinema. I only just see it once on DVD so far. So there's that. The cast is it's got Russell Crowe, the legendary Russell Crowe from Gladiator and other movies. Obviously, he's fantastic. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, he plays Kraven. Russell Crowe obviously plays his father. Other actors that are in it are Ariana DeBoss or something or other. And then Fred Hitchinger. I can't pronounce some of these. And then you've got Alexandro Nivola or someone, Christopher Abbott, and obviously Russell Crowe mentioned. Yeah, a couple of others. I mean, I haven't heard of any. The only ones I've heard of is Aaron Taylor and Russell Crowe. Don't think I've heard of many others. I think one other people looks like what's his face from Alien Covenant. I can't think of his name. It's not him though. But it looks like him, certainly from the photo. But yeah, you get there's images of Kraven on the front. There's quite a few nice images on the back. Would have thought that would have been the front cover actually, rather than that being the front. But they chose to go for that being on the front. But still, that's a pretty good image there with characters that are in it. Kraven there, Russell, and the others. It's there. Get bonus region outtakes, bloopers on this as well. And yeah, so that's the cast. Now the main plot is basically so Kraven. He it basically he's obviously it starts off going back as him 16 years ago as a child with his half brother. His mother gets killed. Can't remember who by. I don't know if it's by gangsters or whatever, but she gets killed, and his father, who is like a gangster drug lord, drug trafficking and all that lot, is a criminal, and they sort of, because his mother's died, they get sort of dragged into his is trafficking, sort of drug business, and he's sort of wants to get them on a path of being criminals like him, and wants to put them under his wing and teach them how to be criminals, and obviously wants them to grow up and be criminals like him. And so that happens, and they go on a trip. I think it's like I don't know if it's Ghana or some South African country. They go on a trip where they're hunting. Obviously, they're hunting for lions and wild animals to hunt them. I don't know if it's they end up hunting them and then obviously end up hunting the animals and killing them to sell meat. But anyway, yeah, they're hunters. So on a trip, he takes his sons with him to hunt lions, and then Kraven, obviously he's called Sergey. He gets attacked by a lion, or does his brother gets attacked first, and then he gets attacked, or he gets attacked first anyway. Yeah, but there's an attack where he gets attacked by a lion, or something goes wrong. I don't know if he's attacked by one lion and then another lion. It's a bit confusing because there's an attack, or I think they go and try and shoot a lion, and then he ends up attacking the two sons, or one lion attacks him, and then it's a bit complicated. But then one lion that saves Sergei, but then anyway he brings him to this girl who turns out to be Kraven's sort of love interest, which he calls Calypso. So basically the lion brings an injured Sergei to Calypso, and she's got some anti-serum that sort of she injects into Kraven, but it's an anti-serum that heals him, but it's got something in it that turns him sort of animal instinct, sort of makes him the Kraven, the hunter, sort of gives him animal instincts that's in the venom, obviously turns him Kraven. So she injects him with that, and then obviously later on he finds out that he's got the animal instinct of that. So then he heals in hospital, escapes, and then it's like 16 years later, he escapes hospital, and it's like 16 years later, and then during that time I think it sort of skips to 16 years later, and he sort of since that incident of that happening, he's sort of since become an anti-hero where he's hunting criminals, like doing drug trafficking and all sorts, and he's been just hunting criminals down since then. What else? He then finds out that the lion that rescued him had been killed, I think, by his father. So then that was the reason why, going back, why he left the hospital to go and that's why he decided to leave, because he wanted to try and find out why the lion had been killed. And then I think it's his half brother that gets kidnapped by these drug criminals, and they hold him ransom because they want Kraven to pay a massive ransom, and then he flees to where Calypso is, and then there's all sort of stuff where criminals or this big gang hunting wild animals for money, and obviously he doesn't want them to do that. He actually ends up because he goes from being the hunter to actually protecting the animals. and then he obviously goes and does that, and then he obviously goes and tries to get back his brother, half brother, who's obviously been kidnapped, and obviously doesn't pay the ransom. He just goes back to get them, and then in the end he eventually does that. But the character, I think that's the main villain. He ends up actually becoming the Rhino, which is another character from Spider-Man. So yeah, you get bonus character of Rhino being in. I think he ends up taking some serum himself that sort of obviously turns him into the Rhino. So yeah, you get that as well, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it just to be about Kraven, but it ends up being Rhino. So they did that. Yeah, so he ends up taking some serum. I don't know if it's the same guy that plays Rhino in the actual comics and cartoon, whether it's the same thing or what's the story about. I don't really know much about the story about how Rhino actually became Rhino, so I'm not sure if that's actually how he became Rhino or whether it's just something where they just wanted someone else to become Rhino. I'm not too sure about that. But I know that character in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 becomes Rhino. That's an awful Rhino. He gets into a robot suit that's like Rhino rather than it actually becoming this. I think this Rhino looks slightly better. Still looks a bit funny, but I think this Rhino in this actually looks like a proper Rhino, or half man, half Rhino, I should say. It looks more like the Rhino in the comics cartoon rather than the robotic, rubbish-looking Rhino we saw in that Amazing Spider-Man 2. But anyway, yeah. So in the end, he doesn't pay the ransom and just tries to get his half-brother back that's been held captive by these drug trafficking criminals who wants to pay the ransom. And then obviously he ends up turning into the Rhino, and a battle ensues, and yeah, he tries to get him back. There's a big battle going on, and then the villain that turns into the Rhino, and there's a big battle going on, and in the end, kraven defeats him, and then there's a bit of other stuff going on, and then, but that's just the main gist of it. Now, what I did like about this is, well, first of all, what I don't like, and what I don't like about any films, I know it's just in films, but I don't like any animal cruelty or anything that's to do with seeing animals getting killed in movies, being hunted, animal abuse or anything like that. So I didn't like any of that at all. Yeah, I just thought it was awful. So don't like any of that to begin with. Story I think was fairly okay. I didn't think it was overly massive, but I think it was fairly understandable. But I thought it was quite basic. I thought the dialogue was quite plain and sometimes hard to understand, especially when they're talking in a foreign language. It was quite hard to understand. Some of the dialogue at the beginning, it was all in subtitles and you couldn't understand it. Some of the other dialogue wasn't that great, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I don't think it's the greatest script that they wrote. I think the script could have been better, and especially the dialogue. I think that could have been better. I think the cast was fairly okay, but I think they could have added a few more names. I think the time of it was probably too long. It seemed like it was too long. I think it maybe should have been 20 minutes shorter. I think like if I write Spider-Man, yeah, it'd be like 2 hours long. But I think this didn't need to be as long as that. I think it needed to be like 15-20 minutes less than it was. I thought 2 hours was way too long. But on the plus side, I think the visually how it looked, I think Kraven looked okay, and Rhino looked slightly better than he did. The other Rhino did, so I thought that was good. So I thought the characters visually it looked okay. The action, to be fair, well, I didn't agree with the animal cruelty in that. The actual action scenes, I didn't think there was any problem with that. I will say that sort of it wasn't sort of in the region of sort of Spider-Man, sort of Avengers, Captain America type stuff, where it's like really extreme action. But it was just like kind of average action. But what it was okay. Um, what was good? Can't think what else. Didn't really like the time. Story was a bit weak. Can't think really what else. Yeah, I mean, it left you feeling, as I said, I didn't like the animal violence in it at the beginning. That's what I didn't like. So, yeah, if you're not a fan of that, then it left you feeling, oh, can't watch that. That's horrible, which is not great feeling to feel. And then I wasn't really that excited for this as much as I am like other Marvel films like Spider-Man and stuff and Avengers. I wasn't really that excited about it. I wanted to see obviously what happened, but then yeah, it didn't feel like it was really that exciting. As I said, the action where it did pick up was quite fun, but there was a few scenes where Kraven wasn't even involved in some of the action, so I thought it was like, you know, it's supposed to be in the main part of it, and there was like a couple of action scenes going on where it didn't involve Kraven. So I thought, yeah, that's a bit strange. But yeah, it was the action was alright, but it was quite basic. And then sometimes it was quite boring and quite flat. But when it did get going, it was alright. But you just had to keep waiting for the action to sort of kick in. So yeah, I think it was sort of like an up and down case. I think it's mainly due to the time. I think, as I said, I think if it was about 15-20 minutes less than it was, I think it would have been maybe a bit more exciting. I think the times where, because it was 2 hours, sometimes there was too many times where it just was boring. It just wasn't very interesting, and it didn't really excite me that much. Uh, so so I'm gonna give it a. I think I'm gonna give this. I think I'm gonna give this maybe a 6, maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10. I'd say not fantastic, and I don't think not really that great. Maybe it's due to the fact that because the animal violence um, was in it. So I'd say maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10. Not perfect, not really fantastic, but just good. But as I said, mainly relying on the action scenes rather than anything else. But yeah, quite an average story, and yeah, but I think yeah, just average really. Not absolutely fantastic, not terrible, but just yeah, just on